Fear the Walking Dead. The tragic love story of John and Naomi is revealed in harrowing flashbacks. The tragic love story of John Dorie and Naomi was told in flashback on Sunday's episode of Fear the Walking Dead. John, played by Garret Dillahunt, had been earnestly searching for a woman he'd named Laura until last week's episode, when he'd discovered that her real name was Naomi, and she was dead. Episode 5 of Season 4 Laura was almost entirely a flashback of their budding romance, in a post-apocalyptic, zombie-strewn world. Despite their mutual affection, Naomi, Jenna Elfman, abandoned John after he'd proclaimed his love for her. Her desertion had led her to the Dell Diamond baseball stadium community, and culminated in her death. The show opened with John carefully cleaning his symbolic white handgun. He was shown in a rustic little home, playing Scrabble alone, and talking to himself. In the dead of night he found Naomi washed up by the river, drenched, injured and delirious with exhaustion. John tended to her wounds, and put her to bed. The next morning she tried to escape in his car, but the battery was dead. He persuaded her to stay for further convalescence. Might want to change that bandage too, he suggested, before tenderly sewing up her gash, and feeding her fish stew. She didn't give him her real name, so he said, "You look like a Laura. Would that be an acceptable substitute?" John offered his guest the only bed, saying, "I don't sleep anyway, nor 2 hours at the most." They took a canoe to an abandoned store for supplies, bonding en route with chit-chat about their pre-apocalypse lives. "I was a police officer," John told her. Gradually they bonded further over movie night and junk food. "I lost my child," she told him mournfully. John taught Naomi to fish, and they shared an almost idyllic time eating what they had caught and playing Scrabble. Their first argument came when Naomi attempted to use his precious gun. "I told you not to go through my things," he snapped. They both almost perished when a walker attacked them in the car, but John still refused to shoot the firearm. He later explained that he hates to use guns because of his time as a cop. "I stopped at the gas station after one of my shows at the Gulch. This guy was robbing the place. I told him I was a police officer and to put down his weapon. He would not," he recalled. "I tried to clip him in the leg, but he turned, and I hit him dead center in that leg, and he bled out," he lamented. That night they were overrun by hordes of walkers. When Laura fell into a pile of them, John finally broke his "no gun" rule to rescue her. "Thank you. You may not think you're a hero, but I do," she told him. "You're an honorable person. I'm very, very lucky to have washed up in your front yard," she added. In a show of understated tenderness he gave her his gun. "Keep it. If you're going you'll need it," he urged. That night he told her, "I love you," adding, "I don't want you to leave. If you're alive, this whole world feels alive." She kissed him passionately, but the next morning she had vanished, taking his boots with her. Flash forward to present day and John sat with Morgan, Lenny James, while cradling some Scrabble letters. "She loved you," Morgan told him. "It's stupid to say, but I believed we'd have a second chance," sighed John. "Maybe we still do," replied Morgan, who became a pacifist after studying the art of peace. They agreed that "fighting and killing was not the way to live." "We are alive. We are part of the world. Let's not waste another second," said Morgan as they walked towards the horizon. Fear the Walking Dead continues next Sunday on AMC. Continue